Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into a topic that might make some of us a little squeamish.
Yeah, definitely not everyone's favorite, right?
We're tackling spontaneous speaking today. You know those moments when you're suddenly expected to be witty, articulate, and totally on point?
Like, put on the spot, no warning. Yeah, I've been there.
We're dissecting a Stanford lecture by Professor Matt Abrahams called Think Fast, Talk Smart. He's got some seriously good stuff.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one. It's packed with useful techniques.
Totally. Our goal is to equip you with practical tools so you don't just survive those impromptu speaking moments, you actually rock them.
Love it. And I think it's super important to acknowledge right off the bat that feeling anxious about this is totally normal.
Oh, 100%. Who hasn't felt that wave of panic when someone's like, all right, tell us a bit about yourself?
The worst. But Professor Abrahams kicks things off with a pretty reassuring statistic. Apparently, a whopping 85% of people experience some level of anxiety about public speaking. So you're in good company.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. It's not just me then.
Definitely not. And he actually brings up this Chapman University study where, get this, public speaking was ranked as a top fear alongside things like terrorism and identity theft. Like, that's some serious stuff.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. Public speaking up there with like existential threats. Intense.
Right. But here's where things get really interesting. Professor Abraham says it's not about trying to eliminate anxiety entirely, because, believe it or not, a little bit of nervousness can actually be helpful.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, it's all about how we manage those feelings. Professor Abrahams has these 3 evidence-based techniques: greeting your anxiety, reframing the situation as a conversation, and becoming present-oriented.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Greeting your anxiety. Tell me more about that.
So it's all about acknowledging those physical sensations we experience when we get nervous, the racing heart, the sweaty palms, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I know those feelings all too well.
Right, we all do. But instead of letting those sensations send us into a tailspin, Professor Abrahams suggests we just acknowledge them. Like, literally say to yourself, hey there, anxiety, I see you.
Huh. I never thought of it like that. So you're acknowledging this thing that's happening in your body without letting it take over.
Exactly. You're shifting from a place of resistance to a place of acceptance. It's a subtle shift, but it can make a world of difference.
That's really interesting. So how about the next technique, reframing it as a conversation? What does that look like?
So instead of picturing the audience as a panel of judges, ready to critique your every word, imagine you're just having a chat with a friend.
Oh, I like that. Take the pressure off. So it's about shifting your perspective, making it feel less formal, more approachable.
Precisely. And Professor Abrahams emphasizes that this simple shift in mindset can dramatically reduce the pressure we put on ourselves to perform perfectly.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's like tricking your brain into thinking, hey, this isn't a big deal. We're just chatting.
Exactly. Just a casual conversation. No biggie.
Love it. And how about that third technique? What was it again? Being present-oriented.
You got it. And that's all about getting out of our heads and into the here and now.
Oh, yeah. Easier said than done, though, right? Especially when you're nervous. Your mind starts racing, thinking about all the things that could go wrong.
Absolutely. But Professor Abraham says that when we get caught up in those what-if scenarios, we actually fuel our anxiety even more. So the key is to bring ourselves back to the present moment.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? Like, what are some practical things people can try?
Well, Professor Abrahams has this kind of funny anecdote in the lecture. He talks about this professional speaker who actually does 100 push-ups before going on stage.
100 push-ups. Wow, that's dedication.
Right. But apparently it's all about getting present in his body, shifting his focus from his thoughts to his physical sensations.
Okay, so maybe not everyone's going to be doing 100 push-ups before every presentation. Any other slightly less strenuous ideas?
Definitely. Professor Abrahams reassures us that there are more, let's say, approachable ways to bring ourselves into the present moment. He suggests simple things like taking a walk, listening to music, or even practicing a few tongue twisters.
Okay, see, now we're talking. Tongue twisters, I can get behind that. I bet that helps get your mind focused on something else besides the nerves.
It totally does. It's like a mental palate cleanser. Yeah.
Totally. Clears out all the nervous chatter.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got a good handle on how to manage the anxiety monster. But how do we actually become more confident, capable speakers in those unscripted moments? Okay, so we've made friends with the anxiety monster, or at least we're learning to coexist. But how do we move from just managing the fear to actually becoming a confident, capable, spontaneous speaker?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Well, Professor Abrahams breaks it down into 4 key steps. And the first one might surprise you.
Okay, lay it on me. What's step one?
Get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way. I mean, it makes sense, but how do you actually do that when your brain's screaming, danger, impromptu, speaking ahead?
Right, exactly. It's about recognizing that often what trips us up most in those moments is, well, us, our own minds, that is.
So we're our own worst enemies.
Pretty much. Professor Abrahams calls it stockpiling. Our brains try to pre-plan for every possible scenario, every potential question, every witty comeback, and it just ends up creating this mental traffic jam.
So all that overthinking actually backfires.
Big time. It makes us sound stiff, rehearsed, anything but spontaneous. And to illustrate this point, Professor Abrahams uses this hilarious game called Shout the Wrong Name.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Shout the wrong name. How does that even work?
So picture this. You're in a room full of people, and the professor points to a chair and shouts, "Banana!" Then he points to a lamp and yells, "Zebra!"
Hold on. He's just shouting random words at everyday objects.
Exactly. It's totally absurd. But here's the thing. Everyone's laughing, they're letting loose, and they're letting go of that need to be right all the time.
I bet that's a good icebreaker, too. Gets people out of their heads.
Yeah.
But how does that translate to actual speaking? Are we supposed to just start yelling random words in the middle of a presentation?
Haha. Probably not the best strategy. But the takeaway is this. Professor Abrahams wants us to dare to be dull.
Dare to be dull. Now, that's not a phrase you hear every day, especially in a lecture about communication.
Right. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually brilliant because so often we put this immense pressure on ourselves to be clever, insightful, to wow everyone with our brilliance, and that pressure can be paralyzing.
Yeah, I totally get that. When you're trying too hard to impress, it's like your brain freezes up.
Exactly. But when we give ourselves permission to be dull, to just say what we mean in a simple, straightforward way, something magical happens.
What's that?
We relax. We free ourselves from that self-imposed pressure to be extraordinary, and paradoxically, that's when our true personality, our unique voice, can actually shine through.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like the less you try to be something you're not, the more authentic and engaging you become.
Exactly. So, step 1, get out of your own way by daring to be dull. Now, ready for step 2.
Hit me. What's next?
Step 2 is to see it as an opportunity.
Okay, I like the sound of that. But easier said than done, right? Because when you're thrown into an unexpected speaking situation, it often feels more like a threat than an opportunity.
100%. Our brains are wired to see those situations as potential dangers. Fight or flight mode kicks in, and suddenly we're sweating, our hearts are racing, and coherent thought has left the building.
Yeah, been there. So how do we rewire our brains to see those moments differently?
Well, Professor Abrahams challenges us to shift our perspective. Instead of focusing on all the things that could go wrong, what if we viewed these situations as opportunities for connection, collaboration, even creativity?
I love that. It's like turning the script on its head. But how do you actually make that shift when your body's telling you to run for the hills?
Yeah. Well, Professor Abrahams has this really fun game he uses to illustrate this point. It's called the Imaginary Gift Exchange, and it's all about embracing the unexpected and building on each other's ideas.
Okay, imaginary gift exchange. I'm listening.
So imagine this. Your partner hands you a pretend gift. It could be anything, a rubber chicken, a unicycle, a year's supply of mayonnaise.
Wait, mayonnaise? Okay, that's just random.
That's the point. And your job is to come up with a reason why this bizarre item is the absolute perfect gift.
Okay, I can see where the creativity comes in. You'd really have to think on your feet to come up with something good for that one, especially the mayonnaise.
Right. But that's where the magic happens, because it forces you to be present, to tap into your imagination, and to embrace the absurdity of the situation. And it perfectly illustrates this concept from improv comedy called the yes and principle.
Yes, and. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
It's about accepting whatever your scene partner throws at you and building on it.
Exactly. And when we bring that same spirit of yes and into our everyday conversations, it creates this incredible sense of openness and possibility.
I love that. So instead of shutting down or trying to control the conversation, you're open to wherever it might lead.
Precisely. And that's when the real magic of spontaneous speaking happens. When we let go of our need to be in control and instead embrace the unknown, that's when we create space for those truly authentic, engaging connections to emerge.
That's awesome. Okay, 2 steps down, 2 to go. What's next?
Step 3 might feel a little counterintuitive, especially when those nerves kick in, and that's to slow down and listen.
Wait, slow down. Isn't the point of thinking fast to, well, think fast?
It's easy to think that, right? Our instinct, especially when we're nervous, is to jump in, fill the silence, get our point across as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally guilty of that. It's like my brain goes into overdrive trying to formulate the perfect response before the other person's even finished speaking.
Which, let's be honest, usually means we're not really listening at all.
Ouch, that's the truth.
Mm.
So how do we break that habit? Because I know I'm not the only one who does this.
Right. It's so common, but Professor Abrahams emphasizes just how crucial it is to actually slow down, tune in, and absorb what the other person is saying before we even attempt to formulate a response. He even has this game, the spelling game, to help drive this point home.
Okay, a spelling game. How does that work?
So imagine someone asks you a question, and instead of just spitting out the answer, you have to spell it out letter by letter.
I see. So it forces you to slow down, to really think about each individual word.
Exactly. And what happens is, in that space between the letters, something really interesting happens.
What's that?
We create space for understanding to emerge. Instead of just reacting, we're actually processing the information, considering different perspectives, and formulating a more thoughtful response. And for this step, Professor Abrahams has this brilliant mantra: don't just do something, stand there.
Don't just do something, stand there.
Bam.
I love that. It's so simple, yet so profound. It's like a reminder to pause, to breathe, to resist that urge to jump in and fix everything. It's about creating that space for reflection, for really absorbing what's being said, and then, and only then, crafting a response that's coming from a place of genuine understanding.
Exactly. It's such a game changer. And it leads us perfectly into that fourth and final step, which Professor Abrahams calls tell a story. Use structures.
Now that sounds a little counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, when we think of storytelling, we usually think of letting go of structure, allowing the narrative to unfold organically.
It's true, but here's the thing. Even the most captivating stories have an underlying structure. Think about it. They have a beginning, middle, and end, right?
That's true. There's always some kind of arc to a good story.
Exactly. And Professor Abrahams reminds us that structure isn't the enemy of spontaneity. It's actually the secret ingredient. It's the scaffolding that allows our ideas to flow in a way that's both engaging and easy to follow.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about memorizing a script. It's about having a framework to hang your ideas on.
Precisely. He uses this really clever analogy to illustrate this point: phone numbers. Think about it. If someone throws a 10-digit number at you, it's pretty hard to remember.
Oh, tell me about it. My brain can barely handle a 7-digit number these days.
Right. But if you break that number down into smaller chunks, the area code, the prefix, the line number, suddenly it becomes much more manageable.
Oh, that's so true. It's like our brains just crave those mental hooks to hang information on.
Exactly. And that's what structure does for our communication. It makes it easier for our audience to follow along, to understand our message, and to remember what we're saying, even in those high-pressure, unscripted moments.
So it's like giving your audience a mental map to follow along with. I love that.
Exactly. And Professor Abrahams offers two structures in particular that can be incredibly helpful in those spontaneous speaking situations. The first one is a classic: problem, opportunity, solution, benefit.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's like a 1, 2, 3 punch for getting your point across. You present the problem or opportunity, you offer a solution, and then you highlight the benefits.
Exactly. It's a really powerful framework, especially if you're trying to persuade someone or make a case for something.
It's super clear and logical.
Mhm.
Now, what about the second structure?
The second one he recommends is super versatile. It's called what, so what, now what.
What? So what? Now what? Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
So you start with the what, basically stating the key point, the main idea you want to get across.
Got it. State the main point. What's next?
Then you move to the so what. This is where you explain why it matters, why your listener should care about what you're saying.
Ah, so you're connecting the dots for them, showing them the relevance.
Exactly. And finally, you wrap up with the now what. This is your call to action, your takeaway message, the next steps you want your listener to take.
What? So what? Now what? That's brilliant. It's like a cheat code for clear, concise communication. You could use that for anything.
Precisely. And to really drive this point home, Professor Abrahams introduces this really fun challenge called the Slinky Sales Pitch.
Okay, hold on a second. A slinky sales pitch. I have so many questions. First of all, who needs convincing to buy a slinky? Those things are just pure joy.
Right, but that's part of what makes it such a fun challenge. So imagine this. You're paired up with a partner. And you have 60 seconds to convince them to buy a Slinky using one of those structures we just talked about.
Okay, now I see what he's doing. It's like a low-stakes way to practice structuring your message in a way that's persuasive and engaging, even when you're talking about something as seemingly simple as a slinky.
Exactly. And it's a great reminder that effective communication isn't just about having good ideas, it's about structuring those ideas in a way that resonates with your audience.
So to recap, Professor Abraham's 4 steps to spontaneous speaking success. 1. Get out of your own way by daring to be dull. Embrace simplicity and authenticity.
2. See it as an opportunity. Shift your perspective and view those unexpected speaking moments as chances to connect, collaborate, and create.
3. Slow down and listen. Resist the urge to jump in with pre-rehearsed responses. Take a breath, be present, and really tune in to what the other person is saying. And 4. Tell a story. Use structures. Structure is your friend. It's the scaffolding that helps you organize your thoughts and deliver a clear, compelling message, even in the heat of the moment. I love it. It's like Professor Abrahams has given us this incredible toolkit for navigating those spontaneous speaking situations that used to fill us with dread.
Totally. And what I find so inspiring is that he doesn't just teach these techniques, he lives them. He even talks about using the what, so what, now what framework with his kids.
Wait, really? He uses these communication techniques with his own kids?
Yeah. He tells this great story about how he used it to explain the concept of gravity to his son. It's a great example of how these principles aren't just for boardrooms and conference halls, they're for everyday life.
I love that. It's a great reminder that effective communication is a skill we can cultivate in all areas of our lives, whether we're giving a presentation to a room full of people or just having a conversation with our kids.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
Well, there you have it. Professor Abrahams has officially given us permission to ditch the fear, embrace our inner dullness, and become more confident, capable, and connected communicators, one spontaneous conversation at a time.
Hear, hear.
And hey, if you ever find yourself at a loss for words, just remember you can always strike up a conversation about slinkies. Until next time, happy communicating, everyone.